Magic apple, mystery apple. Take a little ride, let me be your guide through the apple paradise. Juju apple, voodoo apple. Take a little bite, spend the splendid night in our garden of delight. It's a natural desire. Meet an actual vampire. Let the apple set your soul on fire.
Everybody, and welcome to Cult Musical Zone. Today we're going to talk about one of the most interesting, bizarre, and underrated cult movie musicals of all time, The Apple. And I'm surprised I even found anyone that wanted to talk about this film. But I have three eccentric personalities to talk about this eccentric movie. So, to begin with, just introduce yourself and then tell us the first time that you saw The Apple. So, Helena?
Right, so I'm Helena, and I saw the Apple. I had the good fortune to see the Apple for the first time when I lived in San Francisco at Peaches Christ's Midnight Mass, which was like the perfect place to see it because drag queens and crazy shit, and they had like a floor show and all this kind of stuff. So that was my first time seeing it, and it was like, what is this even? And I've seen some shit, but this was like, okay.
Tyler?
Hi, I'm Tyler. Yeah, and I was trying to show off because I know you don't come across it very often. It's just my background. It's the soundtrack that's on vinyl because I found it on eBay a few years ago. But oh, there it is, The Power of Rock in 1994. But anyway, yeah, I'm so happy to be back. I really love this movie, and I realized that again when I rewatched it Saturday night. I think the first time. Or wait, are we already talking about our first time? Go ahead. Okay, good. I think it was actually about 2014, and I was living in Ohio at the time with my partner, and I knew a friend of mine in Los Angeles, Mr. Jesse Merlin, and he's a big hero in the Rocky Horror community. He had posted about it, and then I was at a used movie music shop with my partner at the time, and there was the DVD for The Apple, and I thought, well, I gotta get it. And I knew it was crazy, and then I watched it, and yeah, I think that's the reaction everybody has. You don't really know what you just saw, but if you're cool like us, you know something kind of clicks with you, and then you can't stop thinking about it, and then the songs are stuck in your head. So I did really get pretty obsessed with it. That DVD was great to have. Of course, now it's great that I think it was Kino Lorber, put out the Blu-ray around 2017, which I immediately got. It was crazy to see it look that good. But yeah, I'm maybe somewhat newer to the Apple fandom, but I agree with what you said earlier. It's very, very much underappreciated.
And John?
Well, my name is John, and the first time I fully watched The Apple was with the Riff Tracks commentary. For those of you that don't know, Riff Tracks is also the same people that did Mystery Science Theater 3000, and they do make fun of it a lot. But I think the first time I'd actually heard of it, it was in Leonard Maltin's massive like movie review book, and he gave it like a bomb rating because, of course, he did. But when I finally watched it, I was like you guys. I was just kind of like, what is this? Like, it's so like I said on Facebook that when I was rewatching it, like it's got to be the campiest, craziest. Started off as a biblical themed movie ever. Turned like it's not disco. It's like disco and glam had this weird baby. That's the best way to put it. And like along with like weird classic Doctor Who sets, it's one of those movies that I'm not sure I'd call good, but it's so fun to watch. That's the best way to put it.
The first time I saw this film was during the same summer that the first time I watched the pirate movie and Earth Girls Are Easy. So it was like a summer of cult musicals. It's the first time I saw the pirate movie and Earth Girls Are Easy. And the pirate movie, which I love, and Earth Girls Are Easy, I love even more. But the apple, it was even bizarre for me, and that's saying something. So I remember my best friend at the time, like she liked the pirate movie and she liked Earth Girls Are Easy, and the apple, she was like, "What is this?" But then I just loved its campiness, and I don't think it's pirate movie and Earth Girls Are Easy and other cult movie musicals are intentionally campy, but I don't think the apple is trying to be campy. Um, I think it's like a fever dream. It's like a fever dream, and it's one of those cult movie musicals that I'm sometimes embarrassed to show friends because they're like, "What is this?" But I'm like, "It's oh, you think Rocky Horror's better? You think Shock Treatment's better? You think etc." Wait, I have the queen of all bad cult movie musicals. So let's segue into oh yeah. Helena, I was actually going to call on you in a second because one of you brought up a point about why this movie made its really weird disco. It's sort of like Xanadu was released after the disco era was over, kind of like Can't Stop the Music. So from one year to another, it's over. So Helena, I was actually going to say that sort of brought up a point to what you made about Xanadu, that it was the studios were cash heavy. So they had money to just spend on all kinds of crazy stuff. So what did you want to say, Helena?
So to give you a little color on this, so I don't know if you guys know, but it was made by Golan and Globus, who were the heads of Canon Films. You know, they gave the world ninjas. And of course, they always operated on no money, but Menachem Golan got it in his head that he was going to make Tommy. So I don't even think this was about it being a disco movie. This was about him being Ken Russell and making Tommy, basically. So that's why this wasn't like a disco heavy, disco forward movie as much as like Xanadu or other things were. This was more his biblical allegory that he was going to do.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that Golem, like, he really approached this like the origin of this was actually like this epically long, like Hebrew languaged biblical or spiritual themed musical. But then they took it, set it in 1994, and made it more contemporary in English language. Um, and he took this movie dead serious. This was not camp to him. And one of the unfortunate stories around the movie is that this movie was lambasted so hard by critics and by audience people. Like, people booed this movie at the premiere that he honestly contemplated self-harming himself. And it is also weird to think of Golan taking this movie so seriously when and commenting, like, there's obviously commentary about like the music industry and stuff like that and manufacturing pop music. When, as Helena pointed out, he was head of Canon Films, and they were notorious for just mass producing schlocky action films. Like, I forget what the documentary's called. I think it's called Electric Boogaloo. And there was at one point with them where they were like, okay, which Chuck are we going to have for our action movie? Chuck Norris or Chuck Bronson? Like, there were a couple projects that were serious and good, but then there's like a lot for every one of those. There's 50 Ninja Assassin, Death Wish 4, stuff like that. So it is a very peculiar film to think that's like, wow, this is the one you took seriously. So
Tyler had held up the soundtrack. I have the soundtrack bootleg. I've had it for years, but a little interesting tidbit before we get into some other things. At the premiere, you know that audiences messed up the screen by throwing the record at the screen. So, and it's sort of interesting because I remember seeing that documentary and they were talking about it was the American dream, to come to America to make movies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, I can only imagine, I guess, as a filmmaker to be lambasted, but I guess the Apple has taken a life of its own and it's changed and things like that. But we'll get to the legacy in the end because the Apple reminds me of another movie about regardless if it's a camp or if it's meant to be taken seriously. So we've touched a lot on the plot, and John brought up a particular point. What do you all think? I know this could turn into an hour discussion, but let's just have a brief discussion about, instead of talking about the plot, your reaction to the plot when you first saw it. Tyler?
Yeah, the reaction. So, I mean, you get as it is now, the film as it is now. I mean, you get from the very start. It's supposed to be in the future in 1994. Um, Luckily, as far as that goes, it's somewhat straightforward, and this BIM music industry giant, is taken over. The only thing is when you get to the end, that obviously, especially the first time you watch it, doesn't really make any sense. Maybe you're like me, you didn't even realize that Joss Ackland is both Mr. Tops and the hippie leader, that Mr. Tops is God. I mean, we kind of get that Mr. Boogaloo is the devil, quite obviously. But of course, with that, I'm sure you were going to touch on that. There's that huge, which the songs on the album, Creation, which would have explained that. I was reading about, as I understand it, though, they couldn't quite control the animals that they had on set as they were trying to film it. Some tigers got loose. And then I think they had some fake, almost paper mache dinosaurs that weren't quite working. But God, I would, and I know obviously they had to they had to cut it in production, like cut that scene. But wouldn't that be great to see? And then there's the other thing about, there was a print, I think it was around 2008, that had the full Child of Love sequence, and we see a little bit of their wedding in the trailer, and then I think it had some alternate shots too, and then Mr. Tops didn't come out of a Rolls Royce, he just appeared, which I might like that a little bit better. But unfortunately, apparently that's been stolen. But yeah, it makes somewhat, but the thing is, I was watching it again, it does seem like there is a lot missing, especially with Pandy near the end. I mean, I know she has like a total change of heart, but when she gets really rebellious, like watching it again a couple nights ago, I was thinking, well, what spurred that on? Because just the night before, she was seducing Alfie. So it's got some plot holes. So I guess that was. I'm sorry. I know we didn't want to take up too much time. I think that. Yeah, my thing is, it starts off where you kind of accept it. Oh, it's the future as imagined in 1980. And then you get from Alfie's vision, which I love, which I kind of wish there was more of. I love that Garden of Eden, And it isn't just because I get to see George Gilmore in a little leaf loincloth, which is a big part, even though this is apparently the only thing he ever did. But anyway, yeah, there's those threads there where I do wish there was more of the biblical through line, because I don't know if it would have done better, but I think it would make maybe a little bit more sense. I don't know. That's my take on it.
Helena?
Oh man. So we're describing sort of the impression that it made on us. Is that what we're doing? I think the big impression that it made on me was its overall cheapness. For something that Menachem Golan wanted to have this be like this big spectacle musical, it just looks, everything is made out of plastic. Everything is that like holographic sticker stuff that you used to get when you're a kid, and you're like, oh, these stickers are the coolest stickers ever because they're sparkly. And just that was what really kind of, and then just also this, I mean, I hate to say it, the cheapness of some of the songwriting and the music. I mean, like the I'm Coming song, holy shit. What even, I mean, just call it We're Fucking. I mean, honestly. So it was that, it was the costumes. I mean, I gotta say, I was really impressed by Mary Catherine Stewart's thigh-high boots. Those boots are fucking fantastic. I mean, if they had put as much care into those boots as they did into the rest of the movie, that would be, great. But overall impression was just like, this is a weird, cheap thing that someone obviously put a lot of, intent into, but why is it how it is? That was my big thing.
And John.
I think since Riff Tracks riffed it the first time I saw it, I kind of automatically jumped into, oh well, they riff bad movies, so therefore this is a bad movie. But watching it again and again, I don't think I ever fully hated it. I just, it's one of those movies that I kind of want to show friends just to be like, guys, check this shit out. And Helena, you mentioned the little like holographic sticker things. Just to revert back to Doctor Who real quick, Doctor Who would do a thing where they would take like an element of some kind or a fabric of some kind and then kind of make that part of the special effects or the costumes, especially in Classic Who. So I imagine the creative team seeing these stickers and being like, ooh, these look futuristic. Let's slap this shit on everything. But yeah, like I think I was kind of blown away the first time I saw it by just the campiness of it. Like this is not a movie that's like about this is not a subtle movie. Subtlety is not a word in this universe. As Helena pointed out, there's a song called I'm Coming in a scene where there are people having sex. It's like there's even at one point where the villain, who's meant to be an analogy of the devil, walks up with, devil horns. And like his little lackey, it looks like a snake. It's like I expected the director to come around the corner and be like, do you get it? It's the Garden of Eden. The devil, temptation. And so, but yeah, I guess I do have an appreciation for it now, and just I kind of want to analyze it and write a paper about it.
My reaction to it, I've always loved cult movie musicals, but the same summer, of course, I saw the pirate movie Earth Girls Are Easy. I saw The Apple, and it was just, I was like, what the hell is this? Like, it was even bizarre for me, sort of on the same level as Can't Stop the Music, the Village People musical. I think I saw that the same summer too. I don't know what was going on that summer. But yeah, it took itself very seriously. And it's my other best friend. She usually watches whatever film I tell her to watch. She said she didn't like the pirate movie. She was like, it's god awful. And she's like, I can't even get through the apple. She's like, I can't even get through it. But my the 70s and the early 80s had a really weird fascination with religious musicals, but done in a hippie way. Of course, you've Tommy, Godspell, Jesus Christ Superstar, and the Apple even takes it a step farther. I think the Apple is even overtly more religious, and it's really, really strange, and it's done in a way that is kind of preachy. I mean, you could use the whole BIM sticker as like an allegory for the mark of the beast, apparently. There's the whole record industry thing, which Tyler touched upon, of course. Phantom of the Paradise did the same thing with Swan being the devil. And then the movie Rock and Roll, the cult music, animated movie musical Rock and Roll, and Mock is the devil. So it didn't do anything original in terms of that, but I think it did it in a way that was much more blatant. Now, the feel of the movie is cheap, and I don't know if anyone knows this background information, but it was filmed in Germany, and they had to make Germany look like America. And so there's that weird Germany's, for anybody who's ever been to Germany, it already looks futuristic anyway. And it kind of makes you scratch your head always when they set things in the future. And when we live in that particular time, it's much more boring than the time they set it. And for them to pick 1994 versus 1995 or 2000, it's such a weird, time for them to set it. This will lead into the next question, is the music. And I usually, for cult movie musicals, I usually have a one particular favorite song, but as horrible as it is to say, these songs are terrible. But they're so terrible that they're charming. Oh, whatever. They're terrible. But if I had to pick two songs that were good, I like You're Made for Me because it's so campy. And what is it with the men in the wigs and the dancing? And then also, Cry for Me would be beautiful if it wasn't set in this ridiculous film. And then you brought up a point, Kathy, Helena/Kathy, about Mary Louise Parker and how she can actually, is her name correct?
Catherine Mary Stewart.
Catherine Mary Stewart, whatever. Sorry. Mary Catherine Stewart. This sounds like a nun. She can actually really sing, of course, but they wouldn't let her sing in this film. They dubbed her with another singer, which is really strange. But anybody can go, I guess, and talk about your favorite songs and your reaction to the soundtrack.
I'll go.
Well, first of all, go ahead. No, you go. You go first.
You
Okay. First of all, I actually really like most of the songs in this, so I don't know what that says about me. Um, I mean, because my favorite is just the title track, "The Apple." I mean, and I know the lyrics are ridiculous. I mean, and that's my favorite line is what Helena has on her background is meet an actual vampire. It's so, what's a vampire doing down there? I don't know. And what's Napoleon doing down there? But that scene, that's my favorite part for some reason. It's just that the colors and I guess the whole Garden of Eden allegory. I don't know. It's just fun to me. I like that one. And then how can you not love Speed? I mean, even though it's not Catherine Mary Stewart, I mean, that is just so high energy. And I mean, I do love the song. I was going to say, I do love Coming. Well, but the song, I'm sorry. It's so dirty. It popped up like I was, driving between here and home, and it popped up on my music. And I thought, I'm glad I'm the only one in the car because she's moaning through it too. But what was funny is I was at work today and the one that was in my head was Cry for Me, which was never really a favorite of mine, but it is kind of beautiful, even though they're like singing to each other miles away in the rain. I don't know. The only ones I don't really like, I mean, Child of Love, I don't really like that one. I don't like the opening BIM song. I like about half of it. Let's say about half. Half of the soundtrack I actually really dig. So
And Helena, can I bring up a point? Why is Miss Piggy in hell? I've always wondered what did Miss Piggy do to deserve to go to hell? She's behind. Yeah. You're muted. Oh, you're muted.
I'm a grandma. Yeah, right before this, I lightened that photo so you could actually see it because it was super dark. So it's like now I'm like, oh, I could see that. I could see the Miss Piggy. I didn't see that before. So sorry. Anyway. I suppose okay, since I'm up, I'll talk about my favorite songs. Now the BIM song, I'm sorry, that's a banger. That's a super banger. It's no wonder he was going to take over the world. That song, I mean, and then later they're exercising to it. They're like, and like the nuns are exercising and all this stuff. I mean, it's a real banger. And then of course, Speed. It's not only about drugs. It's it's also about America, and America is just going so fast in the 1990s that we just gotta drug up and go for it. And so those are some of my favorites, but I think my least favorite, I hate to say it, it's Coming, just because I'm just like every time I hear it I'm just like, oh my god, why? So anyway, to each their own.
John.
So I just on a quick tangent, I think you kind of mentioned this a little bit, James. Just thinking about like this is supposed to be 1994, and thinking about the actual 1994 that we got is like the exact opposite of this. Like it's like grunge, gangster rap, and stuff like that. Like if this happened, like if these people were trying to make these songs happen in the actual 1994, they would be booed off farther than the other couple were. But I'm honestly a gigantic sucker for anything 70s, like 70s music and movies, and there's enough disco and glam rock in this that's like I kind of enjoy every song on their own, like the music and everything. Bim's a little annoying because I forget the male singer's name, but the way he just screams out like there ain't no love, it's like calm down, you're not getting a Tony or anything, but
that's Mr. Alan Love, and I was going to send this to him.
Oh God. Oh shit. Sorry, Alan.
We love you, Alan.
Now.
I was gonna say you're a talented singer. It's just that I'm sorry. You can send me to hell if you want, but But yeah, the Apple is a great number. That I think just because of how crazy it is, but also Speed too because of the energy of it. I will say I think my least favorite song is that weird 1994 song that they sing in The Office. Like it just changes tones real quickly. Like and that and I normally love the villain songs, but that one song about like uh prepping Mary Catherine Stewart for to be a pop star and whatever, it's kind of like it's this weird reggae tune and stuff like that. And it's I don't know, it's just not the same energy as the other. So no, and again, normally I love villain songs, but that one's kind of like I'm gonna skip you. So
That is one of the songs that my friend and I used to make fun of, How to Be a Master. Like, it's so weird. And it's just like the devil. And I don't remember the name of the particular actor, but he was in James Bond films as a villain. And it's just
Vladek
his,
Shable.
yeah, his English isn't the best. It's just like he can't sing to save his life. It's such a strange, bizarre, just such a strange soundtrack.
But he
Oh,
was also in The Boyfriend.
oh, which is with the Twiggy.
And Women in Love by Ken Russell as well. Yeah.
Look at y'all. Nobody brought this song up. Oh, you're talking about show business, John. When they're trying to get all trying to get Mr. Boogaloo to give them a contract. I like the song Universal Melody that they get booed off the stage singing. Alfie and BB,
Does it raise your heartbeats?
or something about Universal Melody, but because
Yeah,
Alfie
that's it.
are supposed to be Canadians, and I guess they're supposed to be pure and innocent, and they come to America. I don't know. I
From
digress.
Moose Jaw.
Okay, so if you had to pick a favorite character in this really wild, bizarre film, who would you choose?
Bim. Bim all the way. I'm full Bim, and then also Snake. Or Shake. Mr. Shake / Snake.
So camp. He is so camp. I think Mr. Boogaloo because he's the devil, but he's not actually terrifying. He's very campy and he's fabulous.
I was gonna say probably Mr. Boogaloo because what's that thing about like oh they always said the devil would be handsome and it's like he does have that weird charm like you can tell he's a little slimy but he's also kind of like when he talks he's talking about like oh now we have the bin market I will put it on myself it's like okay I could see how you take over the world it's like that weird like it's like if Walt Disney was like not trying to be Uncle Walt at all so yeah, probably him. That or Miriam Margolis as the landlady, just because she's crazy. And I've actually met her. She's a very sweet lady.
Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be Mr. Boogaloo. I mean, he makes this. If we didn't have him and the performance that I just can't ever pronounce his name. I know who it is, but I don't think we'd be talking about it. He just makes this movie. But I really love the landlady. She's just so crazy. And then the one, and I know he's kind of boring, but I do have a crush on Alfie. I don't know why. I think he's cute. But then he grabs her boobs in that one scene, and I'm like, "That's your landlady." But I think it's. I mean, I do kind of like BB, but yeah, I would say it's between Mr. Boogaloo and the landlady for me.
But even in the end of the movie, when Mr. Tops sort of is like, you've lost Mr. Boogaloo. Mr. Boogaloo is just more like, okay. Instead of like, fighting about it. He's like, okay. That's basically it. It's a very strange. I want to get into that though. We've talked about the plot and the music. What do you think of this very bizarre sort of like hippie commune? And I know it's supposed to be an allegory and analogy for the rapture, etc. But what do you think of the ending of Alfie and BB and the hippies being taken to heaven in actually following the Rolls Royce?
I see. I get the references to the hippies and whatnot. Also, it's really weird that God in this movie is played by. Speaking of weird movie connections, the actor who played him, I forget his name. He was the main villain in Lethal Weapon 2, so that's just what I kept thinking of. It's like you're a nice guy, but you're going to claim diplomatic immunity, aren't you? But and I do see what they're going for with the hippies being more connected with the earth, and it's a very hippie thing of like, yeah, we're more in touch with the earth, man, because you look at Mr. Boogaloo and everyone in his realm, they are artificial as fuck. Like they are just decked out in like metal and like even the riot gear that the police have are plastic. Like it's supposed to be intimidating when they're hitting their shields coming at them, and it's like that doesn't sound intimidating. It sounded like clapping when I heard it. But when it comes to that afterlife thing, like James, you kind of referenced this. It's like he's just kind of like, okay, it's like, yeah, he's still in control. He's still running the world, basically. Like, God, you want to step in and stop him? And as for the car thing, a part of me wants to believe that they saw Grease and they're like, oh, car flying up to the sky. Let's put that in our movie. So yeah, it is kind of a weird, abrupt ending in a way.
Helena?
That is the ultimate Deus ex machina right there. It's like that is the interstellar pimp mobile of God. And I want to be, I mean, I don't want to be in there with the hippies, but I want to take a ride in that car because that's boss. I mean, that could be like Petey Wheatstraw or something is going to take off in that. But the whole hippies thing, I mean, I was watching the Electric Boogaloo documentary, and they were talking about how Golan did not understand what hippies were, so that was his best guess at sort of these sort of gentle people that sort of weren't. It's the I mean, you have the plastic, dressed holographic sticker dressed people over here, and then you have the earthy people over here. And I also really, really, really love that Alfie and Bibi obviously got married, but they've also got like a 4-year-old. And this was just like last week that she came there, and like all the crimping is out of her hair, and she's yeah. So, but yeah, the interstellar pitmobile and Pandy having gotten the evil just basically like screwed out of her, and that by I mean that's what happened. That's why she's good now. That's what happened. I'm just saying, but the whole thing is just it's absurd and amazing.
Tyler?
I actually didn't think about that. That makes so because yeah, she fucked Alfie, so maybe that's what it was. Yeah, the ending. Yeah, the way John said it is kind of abrupt. Of course, like we said, it would have made more sense had we had the original opening. And something I forgot to mention about that though, when rereading also about this, I think there was supposed to be a dance between God and the devil in that opening number, which I'm glad we didn't get. I think that would have made it worse. Yeah, it is really odd. I mean, the hippies. I mean, I didn't think they were too off the mark. Then again, that's I don't know. It is interesting that Mr. Tops doesn't do anything to stop, like you said, stop the devil. And it's just like, okay, we're gonna go to a new place and leave you, which I mean, part of me really loves that line of, let's give it a try. But like you said, it's like, no, why don't you save the world? I don't know. It's weird. I don't think I don't have anything else to add. I don't know what can I add. I knew Helena, if anyone could explain to me what changed Pandy, and it was, as I suspected, fucking George Gilmore, which I'll never know, but
Also, just thinking about this, Golem not knowing what hippies are, I just remember he grew up in what's now Israel, and I'm trying to think, were there hippies in the Middle East? I don't think there'd be much. It's like I don't see why there couldn't be any there, but it's like I don't know. Like I don't know if it's just my dumb American mind being like, were there hippies there? But
But everybody has to be in the military in Israel, so it's like I don't know if that would preclude that. So.
The hippie movement was very American. I think it was very a response to, the Vietnam War, and I think it was, but I think the whole issue with the disco music and the hippie movement is because it was made in the time where that was over, and sort of like Helena touched upon with Xanadu. I mean, there was a small window of like when disco music wasn't cool anymore, and the hippie thing wasn't cool anymore. So it was just outdated. It was just gone. I mean, the Village People were really, really big, but at the time Can't Stop the Music came out, nobody knew who they were anymore. So I think a lot of the choices, I mean, at that really weird time is the late 70s, the early 80s, it was gone. It was over with. And so I think they used a lot of, go ahead, Helena.
I was gonna it's the disco sucks moment where at that big baseball stadium, they were having a disco record burning thing and it got way out of hand and it was like a riot and it just sort of like from that moment it's like disco is over because this big like riot with all these people that hated disco burning records in this baseball field that was it. Oh,
So it's like, yeah, so I think it missed its window but I think even if it was released in the 70s, maybe it would have done better. Maybe, possibly. Um, because you think of some really crazy cult movie musicals that came out in the 70s, but at the same time, a lot of them flopped. I mean, Rocky Horror flopped. I mean, Phantom of the Paradise flopped. So I think it was ahead of its time in terms of its message. Now, I'm not saying that The Apple is a very deep film that, it has, value such as Shock Treatment does. But at the same time, like the Phantom of the Paradise and like Rock and Roll, I think it does say something about the music industry that is real. I mean, I don't know how satanic it is, but I do think that, especially with, recently with things coming out about the music industry, um, these particular rumblings of things happening in the music industry have been happening since the 70s and the 60s and the 50s. And Paul Williams, playing Swan, the director of Phantom of the Paradise, had heard stories about people doing anything to get to the top in the music industry. And then, Rock and Roll says the same thing. So I think the Apple is not original in that aspect, but I think it's kind of like the holy trinity of like satanic cult movie musicals for the music industry. And I think it is saying something about that you really can't be a decent moral person to be involved in the music industry. I mean, you do have some very moral, decent singers, but they usually exist outside of the music industry as a whole. They own their own music. And I mean, the music industry, not to get deep about this film, but it is pretty wicked. And if you look at a lot of the victims of the music industry, Michael Jackson and Prince and different, they were basically the record industry owned them. And once they try to get away from it, it got them, I think, so to speak. So I think, and I think it says a lot about American culture too, because you have these Canadians coming in, these pretty pure Canadians coming into America, and it's capitalist, and it's sort of like predicted the world that we live in, like Shock Treatment did, where everybody wants 5 minutes of fame and everybody wants to sing and everything's so manufactured. I don't know. I think it's deep in that aspect. And Helena, you brought something up. The first time you saw this was is it Peaches Christ? And so I like Peaches Christ for reintroducing audiences to cult movies, especially Showgirls. But even, its celebration of Showgirls, which I was thinking about earlier, is still missing the point of Showgirls. It's still missing the point. Showgirls is intentionally campy, but people miss the point when it comes to Showgirls. And it's sort of like Mr. Boogaloo's I think is the only actor and the only character that's really self-aware in the movie. Sort of like Crystal Connors in Showgirl. She's the only actress that's like aware of what's happening. And I think people like to make fun of movies and things like that. And people like to talk about how bad they are, but they don't really get it. Like, I think only a handful of people in the documentary You Don't Know Me, I think only a few people get what Showgirls is trying to say. And I think once you get it, you're like, wow, this actually isn't a funny movie anymore. It's pretty dark. Like, I think the Apple, as horrible as is, I think it's pretty dark in terms of what it's trying to say about American culture and the music industry. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I was about to say, in a way, there's definitely probably a commentary about monopolies and like you mentioned, it kind of predicted everybody wanting their 5 minutes of fame, but it also kind of predicts, you know, like at one point in this movie, uh, Mr. Boogaloo and Bim basically control the world. They control the world to the point where at certain times you have to stop what you're doing to do the Bim. Doesn't matter if you're a fireman putting out a fire. Doesn't matter if you're in the middle of heart surgery. You got to do the BIM. And you know, we haven't quite reached that yet. But you think about like Disney, Google, and all these other mega corporations that are just buying everything up, and they almost kind of make it events of like, hey, here's what we got coming on Disney Plus. Here's what Google has planned. So, and that does suck us in. And I say this as someone that I still watch. I still have Disney Plus. I still watch Disney a lot, and I watch HBO Max. I watch a lot of things. I have my comfort shows that I gotta watch. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't know about the seediness about Disney buying, Star Wars, Marvel, 20th Century Fox, and all these other things. It's like, it's like you can sugarcoat it with all the pixie dust you want. You're trying to control shit. So, in a way, the Apple kind of predicts that. Not sure if that was the intention. It's probably making the same basic, evil record industry, evil businessman. It's about the music, man, kind of thing. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, who else?
See, what was the last part of the question? Where are we? I'm a little lost.
It's just, I guess, I don't even know. I guess we just went on tangents about like, do you find like merit and value in it? Do you think that the Apple, sort of like Shock Treatment, other like Phantom of Paradise, Rock and Roll, predicted and uncovered some things that we possibly live through now?
I don't know that Malcolm Golden was that smart. Honestly, I mean, he was just like, music. Oh, let's have a sex number. Let's have plastic. Let's have this. So I think he was just in his sandbox, and he had his background of, very religious background of growing up in Israel and having that sort of basic Bible understanding and all that kind of stuff. So I think he had that, and he saw other pieces of media, and that's what really made him do this. And it ended up being somewhat predictive about the BIM thing, just because I think so many things pointed towards that back in the day. I mean, everyone was pretty prescient about, someday there's going to be these conglomerates and they're going to own everything and they're going to control media and they're going to control this and that. And voila, here we are. And, people who don't collect physical media are at the mercy of these big conglomerates with what their content is going to be.
Tyler?
Yeah. To that point, I mean, it's definitely, the movie's more spectacle than substance. I mean, that's probably the most obvious thing that you could say about it. And yeah, I think it's basically everything that John and Helena has just said. I do think it did predict, in a way, the way Scarily Shock Treatment did. It's kind of become life imitating art, which I don't know if that was even really that intentional with Shock Treatment, but I feel like it was more so probably than the Apple was. I don't know that everything, but at the same time, I don't know that everything would be purely coincidental. But if I don't know, it's like I'm trying to put my thoughts together as I'm saying. But the other thing is, like, if there was to be a movie that just accidentally was somewhat prophetic, and where they had no intention of doing so, it probably would be the Apple. That would be like the one sort of accidental, prophetic, prescient sort of warning, although it's not really a warning now. Um, yeah, I think that's the problem with it, and no disrespect to the memory of Menachem and and everything, but I do think it seems that it did get to a point where it was more about the spectacle and just costumes and then the music, where maybe if there was more of a focus on the actual, yes, Faust, yes, but Phantom of the Paradise did it better though. I mean, so. Um, but maybe if there was more of a focus on the actual story and then maybe more on the themes and maybe a little bit more character development that kind of made a little bit more sense, it might have done a little bit better. But like I said, it's still so much fun, and I don't get, I mean, you can think it's a horrible movie, which obviously it's not, it's not Citizen Kane, but to me, when I watch a movie, if I'm having a good time, if I'm enjoying it, that's my escape for over an hour and a half. And I guess that really explains my love of sort of cult movie musicals.
Just going off what Tyler says, it's like this is not I can't necessarily call this a good movie, but I'm not going to call it a terrible movie. Like I'll watch this over 1,000 other movies that are more objectively bad. It is more about the spectacle because, without insulting the man, Golan was more about the spectacle. He was all about the big shootouts and the explosions and kind of, this is going to be a harsh word, but gimmicky movies. Or he wanted to have something that he could just like plaster on the poster. Like at some point he got famous the late French film director Jean-Luc Godard to make a movie for him. And I guarantee you it's not because he respected Jean-Luc Godard's art. He's just like, hey, I got this well-known French guy to make a movie. Come see my movie. Like, and so, yeah, it's definitely more about the spectacle, but it's a fun ride. Like, I want to show this movie to my friends just to see their reaction to it because it's so campy and weird, and I want to show them and then interview them, being like, so, what'd you think? Just because it's one of those. It's kind of like Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Not really good, but it's fun. It's fun to watch with people.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was going to say that I find this one I find the apple slightly less painful than I find Sgt. Pepper, honestly.
I don't know. I take comfort in these movies. I even take comfort in the pirate movie. Every summer I have to watch a pirate movie. I'm like, oh, Christopher Atkins singing. But anyway, thank y'all so much for being here and discussing this garish musical. I mean, there's really no trippy musical.
Campy.
Y'all have any other final thoughts? Or how about we'll just end on this. Do you have any quote from a lyric or in the film that resonates with you? Not resonates with you, but you like. There you go.
For what it's worth, I did actually make, I just remembered that I had it. I don't know why I didn't think of it before we started recording, but I made a BIM Mark t-shirt. So I got some of that iron-on, like glitter iron-on, and I made the big BIM. And I wear it from time to time, and no one has ever said, oh my God, that's a BIM Mark. So
I
what it's
wouldn't
worth.
if I saw you.
I know. That's why we got to get together someday. But I need to be validated by people that know this stuff.
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't know. I think that's my favorite line, is just meet an actual vampire. But there's another, and I love him, but George Gilmore, he's got kind of I can't really pin down his accent, but like when they're first going to the BIM headquarters, and he's so dramatic the way he looks up. He goes, he could destroy us. And then of course BB's like, or make us. I don't know. That one really stuck out to me. And the way he says, there was an earthquake. I mean,
Oh my God.
I'm not worried about him seeing this because I don't think even Catherine Mary Stewart, she's tried to, or maybe she's in contact with him. I don't know. George Gilmore, find me. I just want to say hi. I'm not, I'm over Crush. I can't send this to anybody. I can't send it to Alan Love. I can't, Anyway, those are my favorites. Yeah.
I was going to say, I've never been so high in all my life.
If you do send this, tell Alan Love I am just a piece of shit. Just include that in the message. Like, this guy's a piece of shit.
No. Why not?
But
he agrees with you on that singing part, but he's
Okay.
he loves the fans.
Well, he is way more talented and good looking than I'll ever be, so he has that above me. So, but yeah, like I think George's accent is weird. Like I think is he South African so I don't know what they're going for with that accent. Mr. Golan is not known for his directing, but all I can think about with this movie is I'm coming, because it's like, how can I not think of anything else? Like, you're just so like, your pornos are more subtle than that. I'll say that.
Yeah, I
Harder and faster and longer and I was like, oh my God, no.
And when you think you can't keep it up, I'll drain every drop of your love. That's subtlety at its finest. It's poetic. It's art.
some lyrics just don't translate to English. I think they just don't translate to English, and it's God Almighty. Mr. Tops Almighty, Lord. Okay. So anyway, I don't even have anything else to say about this film at all. But thank y'all so much for being here and being weird and loving the same weird movies that I do.
Being weird's what it's all
Thank
about,
you.
man.
The apple
Thank you.
is the temptation.
Peace.